Hey there, YouTubers. Kid and Hoarder here, and you're watching Session Report, the show that takes you to the gamer's table to share in the surprises that come out during play. And today we are going to be playing Lobotomy, which is a very cool little miniatures-based dungeon crawl game, but with a psychological horror setting and theme. So this playthrough is going to be a little different from most of my normal things for a couple of reasons. One is we just moved into a new location, and well, a new house, which is also counts as a location, I guess, for filming. And right now I don't have any curtains, so and also the light here is not that great, so we're filming with natural light for the time being. So as you might notice, it's sun's on the way down right now. A shadow might start to creep over the board slowly, which I guess sort of fits with the theme of your madness slowly taking over in the lobotomy. So that might be different. Also, I'm experimenting with, we got an overhead fan in this room now, so I'm experimenting with running that to keep, keep things bearable in here, but it might cause a little audio distortion or audio noise, so I apologize for that if that's happening. This video will be sort of like the test for see if that's going to be a problem or not. So those are a couple disclaimers. Another thing that's going to be different is that normally I have two kinds of video that I do. There's the ones that are like a blind playthrough, and these are the ones that I'm doing for the legacy style games like Pandemic Legacy. Time Stories isn't really a legacy game, but that's something that is intended to be played once and then you're done with it. So it makes more sense to do those blind. Then most of the videos that I have, I try to play a game a few times before I record the video, so I'm more familiar with the rules. Lobotomy I have played a couple of times already, but this rule book and the entire rules presentation in Lobotomy is difficult. So this is going to be not a playthrough where I'm super comfortable with the rules. I might get a few rules wrong because it's difficult not to with this game. Or I might have to stop maybe more often than usual to look up rules. I know that that's something that I tend to do more than I would like anyway, and it might be a problem here. Especially because this is a scenario-based game, so every scenario has its own rules, and the ones I've experienced so far, there are ambiguities that I'm going to have to look up and resolve as we play. But without further ado, we're going to get into the game. So, I'm not going to explain all of the rules in depth. You're going to see them as they go. But I'm going to walk you through setting up the game, and we will start our first scenario. Okay, to begin with, there are a couple of additional materials that I highly recommend you print out if you're going to try playing this game. And these all come from a guy named Judgment Dave on Board Game Geek. And he was also responsible for a rules rewrite for the game. Now, the rules by themselves are, for the most part, understandable. There's a few things that are missing, like in setup. Like immediately as soon as you start setting up the game, you'll notice that there's a few things that are very ambiguous, or it's hard to find on the board what's happening, what's supposed to be being described here in the setup rules. But for the most part, you can understand what these rules are saying. It's just the English isn't great. So the revised rulebook, I would say, is a nice thing to have, not absolutely necessary to print it out. But I do highly recommend printing out the revised scenario guide, and the main reason for that is because then it's not in the rule book, right? The scenarios are in the back of the rules, and it's sort of a pain in the butt to have to flip around and also have this huge rule book open when you're trying to look up the scenario specific rules, and then you have to flip back to the main rule book if you have to look up a normal rule, and then flip back to the scenario, and it's a big hassle. So I recommend printing this out. I did my best on a black and white printer. I'm sure you could do better if you use a full color printer and whatnot. The other really important stuff that I recommend is he did a nice player aid. So with this, you probably won't have to flip through the rules. There's a couple of things that are missing or need to be changed a little bit, like he forgot. I assume he forgot this. It's not a conscious rules change, that when a character dies, all of their items lose durability and a charge. That I had to add that to the rules. And there were a couple of other things I had to sort of clarify. But definitely print out this player aid from Judgment Dave and these map cards. This is the main thing. Because in this game, you are making a board, which is an insane asylum, that you are trying to escape from these giant modular map pieces. You're going to pick 4 each game. And the rules say you can pick them or you can get them randomly. I highly recommend, or I don't know, I haven't played the game enough to recommend, but I think it just makes more sense to try and do them randomly. And if you're going to do them randomly, it's nice to have these cards that show the maps on them. Also, these cards are very, very useful because in the game you are supposed to set up the board in certain ways by putting things on like highlighted doors and highlighted spaces. Well, you can't really see the highlighting all that well. This is actually a good example where you can see the highlighting okay. I don't know if you can tell. Those doors are supposed to be highlighted. These doors are supposed to be highlighted. But then some of them, you really, really can't tell what's going on. And there's like, okay, this door isn't highlighted. Is that because they don't want me to put a door there? Or because they just forgot to put the highlighting on the tile? What's going on there? So, Judgment Dave has made some judgment calls on that in communication with the designers of the game as well. And he has highlighted all of the places to put those things during setup, and additional places to put bodies, which normally you're supposed to put them actually on the same spaces as these chests and drawers, but he put the bodies elsewhere. And it also highlights all the doors that you have and the path that the warden is going to take through the room. So these are a really nice reference to have, as well as a good, convenient way to randomize your board for setup. But before we randomize the board for setup, we're going to select a random scenario for the game. So I'm just going to shuffle these up really quickly, and we're going to see what our starting scenario is going to be. How we're going to play this game is we're going to play several scenarios in a row. It's going to take a while. This might be a many part video, but I think the way the game was intended to be played is at least 2 scenarios, not just the one. And as far as I understand it, the game just gets better and better the more scenarios you pile on there. So we're going to start with well, we're just going to play through as many scenarios as I think I can handle. And then when I'm like, okay, enough's enough, that's when the game will be over. But I'm going to go with maybe 3 or 4 scenarios, and we'll just see what we can do with that. So, let's pick a random scenario to start with, and it is going to be Vampire's Desires. This is where you have to fight lesbian vampires. Okay, so we picked out 4 rooms. The entrance is required for the lesbian vampire scenario, the Vampire's Desires. And then we picked 3 more: the chapel, the day room, and the garden. So now we're going to finish setting up the board. Now there's, it says to do things in a certain order in the book. That's not that necessary. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take these body tokens and shuffle them up and put a random one in each quarter of the board, as well as a random one in the middle right here on the pentagram space. And then we're also going to do the same thing for the drawers and other searchable things, the chests. And we're going to put doors on all of these things. Then we're going to what's called randomize some memory tokens and some enemies. And randomize basically just means roll a d12 and a d4. The d4 tells you which quarter of the board it's in. The d12 tells you which position from 1 to 12 on this numbered track, which the warden's going to be walking through. So for putting the body tokens out, For the entrance, there are 3 locations for bodies. So we're going to roll a D3 for this. And, well, let me put one in the middle first. And then we're going to roll a D3 for the entrance. And we rolled a 1 on the D3. So the body is going to go here on the kitchen counter, I guess that's what that is. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other rooms. So in the chapel, that's also a D3. And again, we rolled the number 1. So that's going to be right here, the very first room. For the day room, we again rolled a 1. And that is going to be here on this couch. And then for the last one, we rolled a 2. But actually, this had 5 body positions. So we're going to use that actual number 4 for that one, and that is going to go, the 4 is on the path. It looks like right here on the bend of the path. So there's a dead body there. Now these aren't actual dead bodies. You are, in this game, you are sort of a crazy person, so you just think you're seeing bodies everywhere. But actually they are, I don't know, piles of clothes, people who are sleeping, who knows. Okay, so then we're going to set up all of the chests on these spaces and all of the doors. I'm not going to have you sit through that, but I'll check back in with you when that's done. All right, so an astute observer will notice a change in lighting has occurred. Yeah, the sun was a little much, so I figured out how to get the blinds up. That's nice. We've got blinds installed. Now we're just dealing with these room lights. Unfortunately, they could be a little brighter. I wish that they were, but we're going to be changing that bulb at some point in the future. So for now, we're just going to deal with this as it is. And you will also have observed that I put out all of the cabinets and door tokens as stated on these cards. Now that's a little different from what's actually printed on the board. We're going with the cards for now. But I'm not 100% sure about some of these changes. They seem like a little bit too much liberty with the design. Like, for instance, why is there a door here that's clearly not highlighted space, even though there's a door printed on the board here? I'm thinking he was probably thinking, well, you know, there's a door here, why wouldn't there be a door here? But you also have to think you start here, and this door is much closer than this one in terms of moving around the board. So it seems like there's got to be, I think there was some balance inherent in the design to begin with. But that is not the purpose of this video. We will, I mean, you can tell me what you think about this, but I don't know. So, back to the game. I put out all the door tokens. There are 3D doors that come with the game. These are just, you know, cardboard standees, basically. They weren't going to work with this fan, so we're not using the 3D doors for now. And now we are to the point where we are going to have to randomize some things. So the next part of setup is to randomize some monsters and some memory tokens. To randomize, generally you roll the D4 and you roll the D12 and you put a token out on that spot. Now, we are going to just roll the D12 because you need to randomize 1 memory token. Is it 2 memory tokens? I think it might be 2 memory tokens and 1 scavenger and 1 mental patient in each quarter. And then we're also going to randomize 2 nurses because we were going to be playing with 4 characters. So let's check this out here. I think it's on one of these. Okay, so randomize 2 memory tokens, that's right, on each quarter. So we have a memory token on space 1 of this quarter, and a memory token on space 4 of quarter A. So there's space 1, there's space 4. We have a memory token on space 6, and a memory token on space 8 of the chapel. We have a memory token on space 8 and one on space 7 of the day room. And finally, we have a memory token on space 9 and on space 10 of the garden. So there's space 10, there's space 9. Now we're going to do the same thing with these scavengers. So one on space 4 with the memory token. One on space 1 of this next area. One on space 5. And one on space 5, which is here. And then we're going to do the same thing with the mental patients. So we have one on space 11, one on space 9, one on space 8. Where's 8? There's 8. And one on space 2 on this board here. And then finally, we're going to randomize 2 nurses. So we have a nurse on D12, like so, and we're going to have to make sure the other one is on a different board. So I rolled a 4 again. We're going to re-roll that. All right, the other one is on C2, like so. All right, there's all of our randomization done. So I believe we now just have to do scenario-specific setup, and then we're ready to set up the characters. So let's see what the scenario-specific setup says. Place 1 vampire at the entrance on the space with a car. There are many spaces with a car. So I need to grab the vampires. We're going to put a vampire on the entrance and randomize 2 more vampires on the board. And then put a holy token on each space containing a vampire. All right, we've got the vampires in play. One on the space with a car, we have one in the day room over by the TV, and we have a vampire over here. And they've all got a holy token on their space, although this space is rather crowded, so the holy token is underneath everybody. Also, interestingly, John Constant, no, that's not his name, Peter Constant, the guy who's like the unholy demon killer guy, also is going to use a holy token, and it's going to have special effects, so who knows how that's going to interact with this scenario. Probably in ways that are not covered in the rules, because that's how this game is. But, yeah, setup is done, so now we're going to pick some characters and begin playing. So, I finished setup, and the last step of setup is to choose characters and give their starting skills and whatnot. So basically, pick 3 to 5 characters, because that's the amount of characters you can play as. You can't play as any others. And for each character, shuffle their memory deck, pick 2 of their 4 possible starting skills, and then pick 1 card from each of their mental disorder decks. So like Dale Walker has aggression and OCD, so I picked an aggression card and an OCD card, and choose 1 to keep, and discard the other one back to the deck. So let's go through each of these characters, and we'll talk about which abilities I picked and whatnot. So first, Dale Walker. Dale Walker used to be a night manager at the hotel, but started suffering from muscle weakness and light cognitive impairment. His doctor suspected vitamin D deficiency, but referred him to a psychiatrist. Dale has been in the asylum for 3 years now. He is Dale Walker. He is a vampire hunter, who might also be a vampire himself. His special ability, his acrobatics. Lose 1 health to move 2 spaces in any direction. You can leave spaces with monsters, and gain +1 to attack rolls until the end of the round. And he can do this once per turn. His 2 starting skills are Blade Equilibrist, which is an attack, and Vampiric Regeneration, which lets him regenerate lost health. He also has a starting skill from his aggression deck, Earthquake, which is another attack. This one's an area attack. And he starts out with a gas pipe. So let's talk about the goal of the scenario for a little bit first, and then we'll continue introducing the characters. So basically, I have to kill all the vampires. That seems easy enough, but these vampires are going to be a little tricky. They're going to move in a strange way, so they could either take their wolf form, rat swarm form, or shadow form, and then when they take damage, they go into mist form instead. And they might recover health from that, and they'll run away. So you have to really corner them. The holy tokens are also ways to negate the effects of the vampires. And then we also have different things that could happen. Basically, characters can get cursed by the vampires, getting either spiders or weakness tokens on them. But basically, yeah, I have to defeat the 3 vampires, and they each have 6 health, not the 8 that is printed on their sheet. They also have a couple of other cool abilities: Boss, Blood Bond, Immunity, Frost, immunity to, it looks like ethereal damage and frost damage, I believe, and Precision. So we'll look those up in a second. So yeah, trying to kill these vampires. So, placing Dale Walker on the board, I know I'm going to want to kill the vampires, but I also want to try and get some, a little bit more good gear first. Possibly. Dale Walker is not the most imaginative character. In fact, he's the least imaginative character. And you use your imagination for searching. So really, I should put him someplace where he can maybe be fighting some enemies. I'm going to put him here for now, so that he'll start out here, and then he can go around one of these 2 places and start fighting some enemies on that part of the board. Okie dokie. Next character, Helena Swan. Helena Swan claims to have been born in 1774. She is able to talk about her life in Victorian England with astonishing detail. She suffers from photophobia and clinical vampirism. Admitted to the asylum after being linked to several cases of cannibalism. So she also believes that she is a vampire. Her special ability is Afterlife. After dealing a final blow to a monster, she recovers some health. She has these 2 starting basic skills: Hypnotizing Eyes, which is an attack that also lets her recover health, and Blur, which is another attack. And she has this schizophrenia ability, Soul Eater's Trap. Place a blue token next to a non-boss monster in range 4. During monster movement, roll a d6. On a 1 to 5, the monster does not move, loses 1 health, and you recover 1 health. On a 6, the monster moves normally. And then basically, it looks like that stays on that monster until I use the ability again. So that's pretty cool. And she begins with a broken glass. She's supposed to start with a gas pipe, but Dale already starts with a gas pipe. Seems like a major oversight, but you know what? That's not the only one in this game. So, she has a decent imagination. She doesn't have the best, actually. That's going to be the doctor here. But she's got a decent imagination. I'm going to put her on this part of the board so she can start working on exploring. Ugh, this board is not sitting right. It's bugging me. Alright. Next, we have Marcus Dieter. Dr. Marcus Dieter specialized in transplantology. He was always considered psychotic and paranoid among his peers, so nobody was surprised when he finally got institutionalized. The real shock came when the contents of his private lab were revealed. The good doctor, classic trope, the mad scientist. And he is mad. Apparently he was doing some experiments with like sewing people's faces to other people's, yeah. Anyway, so his special ability is God Syndrome. Lose 1 health to recover 2 health to a character in the same space. That's pretty cool. And he has a couple of other starting skills. Personnel Only, which is a move and gain extra defense that round. And Bedside Manner, which is also a recovery ability. And then his schizophrenia skill is pretty cool. It's Unstable Energy. That's going to give him extra boosts to his unarmed attacks. So once he's done with this lobotomy spike, which actually is going to run out of fragility, I guess, really soon. Durability, he gets to get a little bit more powerful unarmed attacks, which is good because he is the weakest fighter of the group. He needs to roll a 5 or better on a die to succeed. Everyone else only needs to roll a 4 or better on the die to succeed. And then finally, we have Peter Constant. Peter Constant spent his childhood in a strictly Catholic foster home. As his mental disease progressed, he started to hallucinate angels and demons. To get rid of them, he studied exorcisms and occult, held in the asylum due to multiple suicide attempts. So, Peter Constant is like a demon fighter. His special ability is Sharp Mind. Your weapons have an extra die and +1 to their max durability. And then here's his basic starting skills. Demon's Favor, which uses his weapon, which right now is a cross, to attack twice, and that attack gains fire damage. Lifelink, his attack basically heals him as well. And Walking Death is I believe this is a schizophrenia skill. We actually have 3 schizophrenia skills out, and one that was aggression. We didn't get any of the anxiety, neurosis, or OCD skills. I just felt like these were better. So, Walking Death. Your character on your space gain +1 to attack rolls for this round for weapon and bare fist attacks. So, I think he should actually hang out with the Doctor. Actually, let's do this so that he and the Doctor are around in the same area. We're going to switch them, and we'll have Helena and Dale Walker hang out together for a little while and see how that plays out. Okay, so that is the entirety of setup. It is now time to just begin playing with the first round of the game. So I'm going to pause it and probably do this as a separate video. So hope you enjoyed seeing the setup and a little bit of explanation of how this game works, and then we will get into the gameplay.